was just wine, or so it looked. A quiet dinner, the kind my wife insisted we host once a month. Her parents were visiting, seated across from us, plates full, conversation light. Her mother had brought the wine, poured it herself, and set the glass in front of me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Nothing unusual at first, but then I noticed she watched me too closely, not in a warm, familiar way. More like she was waiting for something to happen. I didn't drink. I listened to her chatter, responded politely, then excused myself to get a napkin. When I came back, I set it down, switched my glass with her husband's, and sat back in silence. He never noticed, neither did she, at least not yet. She relaxed a few minutes later, looked away, laughed at something my wife said. That's when I knew. I didn't say anything, I just let it happen. We all ate, talked, smiled. But something had shifted. She thought she was in control, thought no one saw the strings she pulled. But now I was watching her. And this time I wasn't going to stay quiet. When I married Elise, I knew her mother wasn't thrilled. She smiled through the wedding, toasted politely, even hugged me. But it all felt like performance. I used to tell myself I was imagining it, that maybe I was just too sensitive. But over time, the signs stacked up. Her compliments always had weight. "You're good with your hands," she once said. Elise always did like projects. Or, "Your house is cozy. Reminds me of the one we had before we could afford better." I knew exactly what she meant. I was a contractor, came from working class roots, my hands were calloused, my truck was loud, and I didn't wear polished shoes to dinner. None of that sat right with her. Elise didn't care. She loved me for all the reasons her mother quietly resented me. It wasn't dramatic, just constant. The quiet judgment, the knowing glances, the little corrections. She'd rearrange things in our home when she visited, offer suggestions on my business, hint that Elise deserved someone more upwardly mobile. Elise always brushed it off. "She's just opinionated," she'd say. "She doesn't mean anything by it." I let it go for years. I didn't want to stir anything up. We had peace, more or less, but it came at a cost. I kept my mouth shut through birthdays, holidays, and countless family dinners where I felt like the outsider at my own table. The worst part was the manipulation. Soft, polite, wrapped in silk. When Elise and I disagreed, her mother would somehow always know. She had a way of inserting herself without ever looking intrusive. She was smart, controlled. I'd seen it all before. But that night at dinner, the rules shifted. The way she handed me the wine, the way she watched. It wasn't just disapproval anymore. It was intent. When I switched glasses with her husband and saw her body language change, it confirmed what I'd suspected. Something was off, and this time, I wasn't going to write it off as passive aggression. This was different. This was a move. And after all these years of silence, I finally realized, if she wanted to play games, I could play too. Only I'd be the one setting the rules now. The first sign was in the kitchen. I walked in to grab a towel and saw her, whispering something to her husband. She stopped the second I stepped through the door. He didn't look at me, just nodded, lips tight, then walked out like nothing happened. She smiled at me, wide and polite. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Of course, dear," she said. "Just final touches." It wasn't the words. It was how she said them, too smooth, too ready. At the table, she was overly sweet. Poured my wine before I sat down, kept refilling it any time it dipped below halfway. Elise joked that she was trying to get me drunk. Her mother laughed. "What's a little wine among family?" I finally took a sip out of courtesy, just enough to wet my tongue. It hit strange, not bad exactly, but off, bitter on the back end. My mouth tingled, not in a good way. I didn't finish the glass. Something shifted in me then. I looked at her. She wasn't watching me directly, but she was waiting. Laughing with Elise, buttering a roll, eyes flicking my way every few seconds, waiting for something to happen. It wasn't just a joke. Wasn't harmless. I didn't know what she'd done, but I knew she'd done something. That's when I decided. No reaction, no confrontation, just observation. I reached for my napkin, took the glass with me, and quietly made a trade. No one noticed when I made the switch. That's the thing about quiet moves. They work best when everyone's comfortable. I stepped away under the pretense of grabbing a napkin, circled the table behind them, and traded glasses as I passed. My hand barely paused. His was closer anyway. When I returned, I took my seat, lifted the fresh glass, pretended it was mine all along. She watched me, still. Her smile was soft now, approving. I met her eyes as I lifted the rim to my lips, tilted, just enough to make it believable. Let the wine touch my mouth, not my throat. She relaxed. Conversation resumed. Elise was talking about vacation plans. Her father chuckled at something I missed, and then slowly he went quiet. Set his fork down, rubbed the side of his head. She noticed before anyone else. "Are you all right?" she asked too quickly, her voice higher than before. He nodded, but his skin was pale. He reached for his water and missed by an inch. That's when she looked at me. The moment her eyes registered confusion. Not panic, not yet. Just a flicker of realization. I didn't say a word, just chewed my food, nodded along with the conversation, and watched the gears turn in her head. She thought I drank it. She was so sure, so careful, so smug. But all I did was switch the glass, and now she had no idea what came next. He stood up too fast, and that's when it hit him. He wobbled, grabbing the edge of the table for balance. His napkin hit the floor. Conversation stopped. Elise rose instinctively. "Dad?" He waved her off, tried to smile, but it was already unraveling. His hand trembled as he reached for his water again, and this time, he missed it completely. The glass hit the floor and shattered. That's when the mask cracked. Her voice went sharp. "What's happening? Are you okay? David, say something." She got up and went to his side, all concern now, all frantic motion. He muttered something about the room spinning. Then he sat down hard, breathing heavy. I watched from across, the table calm, silent. "Should I call someone?" I asked. She didn't answer. Elise did. "Yes, call now." As I stepped away to dial, I caught the look on my mother-in-law's face. Not worry for him, not yet. Worry for herself. It was brief. 1 second too long. One expression too honest. The paramedics came and took him in for observation. Something about elevated heart rate, confusion, possible reaction to medication. She rode with him, still pretending. Elise stayed behind to clean up. I offered to help, then excused myself to the garage. Sat at my workbench, pulled out my phone. A week earlier, I'd installed a small camera above the kitchen sink. She always assumed I was paranoid. I just believed in insurance. Now I was ready to collect on it. I waited until the house was empty. Elise had gone to visit her father at the hospital. Her mother hadn't come back yet. I locked the door, poured a cup of coffee, and opened the footage. The small camera above the sink had a perfect angle of the counter, time-stamped, clear. No sound, but I didn't need audio. Her actions were loud enough. She came into frame alone, carrying the wine. Looked over her shoulder once. Then again. Satisfied. She pulled something from her purse. A tiny bottle, barely visible. Unscrewed it with deliberate care. She poured the wine into one glass first. Mine. Then she added a few drops of whatever was in that bottle. Swirled it gently. Just a quick flick of the wrist. Like it was routine. Then she said something. Her lips moved. Slow. Deliberate. I played it back 3 times, reading them. Time. To end this. And then she smiled. Not the fake one she wore at dinner. This one was quiet, private. A victory smile. She rinsed the bottle, tucked it deep into her bag, and exited the frame just before Elise entered. I sat there for a long time, after the footage ended. Not angry, not surprised, just resolved. She didn't make a mistake. This wasn't panic or impulse. It was planned. And now I had her, in her own words, in her own hands. This wasn't about petty family tension anymore. This was intent. and intent leaves footprints. I didn't rush it. I waited until Elise had come back from the hospital, exhausted and quiet. We sat at the kitchen table, just the two of us, and I told her I needed her to watch something. No setup, no accusation, just the facts. She leaned forward, eyes red, still trying to understand what had happened that night. I pulled out my phone and pressed play. At first, she didn't move, just watched her mother pour the wine, then the dropper, then the swirling. Elise's hand went to her mouth. By the time the lips formed the words, "Time to end this," she was shaking. "She was trying to drug you?" she asked, voice hollow. I nodded, but I didn't drink it. She didn't speak for a long time. When she did, it was almost a whisper. "My dad. He's still in observation. They're not sure what it was, but it hit his heart." The next few hours blurred. Elise confronted her mother over the phone. Denials followed, wild, erratic, desperate. "You misunderstood, I was just joking with myself." He switched the glasses. "That's not on me," but it was. When Elise showed the video to her brother, the family split like dry wood. Half were stunned into silence. The others tried to rationalize it away, but the footage didn't lie. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was attempted harm. Intentional, documented. And the people closest to her were finally seeing the truth. Some for the first time. I didn't want a courtroom. I didn't want drawn-out hearings or messy trials. I wanted truth, delivered plainly. So I called her, told her we needed to meet. Just the two of us. We sat across from each other in the park. Neutral ground. Wind rustled the leaves above us, but neither of us looked away. "I know what you did," I said. "And so does Elise." Her face twitched. Not shock, just calculation. "I have video, clear as day. You poisoned my drink. Your husband drank. Instead, you smiled." She looked down, folded her hands. "You have a choice," I continued. "Confess, leave quietly, or I go to the police with everything." Silence stretched between us, then the smallest nod, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. But it did," I said. "And you don't get to rewrite it." She stood, shaky, no apology, no defense, just walked. Wicked that night, Elise sat beside me on the porch. She had already told her mother not to call again, not to write, not to show up. "She's out of our lives," she said. "For good." I nodded. For the first time since that dinner, the air felt lighter. Not because she was gone, because the truth had weight, and I'd finally laid it down. In the weeks that followed, the silence in our home shifted from tense to peaceful. No more side comments, no more strange glances at family dinners. Elise and I moved through the days with a quiet understanding, what we'd come through, and what we'd left behind. We didn't talk about her mother often, not out of avoidance, but because we didn't need to. The boundary was drawn, firm, final. Elise started sleeping more soundly. I noticed it first, the way she stopped checking her phone late at night, waiting for the next outburst or manipulation. Her father came home from the hospital, still recovering, but distant. He never spoke a word against his wife, but he never called her back either. Sometimes people sever ties not with anger, but with absence. I didn't tell anyone else in the extended family what happened. I didn't need to. Rumors spread, as they always do. I let them run their course. I had no interest in revenge, no desire to explain myself to people who hadn't seen the footage. I had the truth. That was enough. What stayed with me wasn't her betrayal. It was how long I'd known it was coming, how many times I'd chosen restraint over retaliation. And in the end, that's what saved me. I didn't shout, I didn't accuse, I just waited. And when the moment came, I let her make her own mess. I just made sure someone finally saw it. Some battles aren't fought loud. They don't come with slammed doors or raised voices. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence, and a camera quietly watching from the corner. I'd spent years swallowing tension, walking carefully around someone who never saw me as family. I could have yelled. I could have tried to expose her a dozen times before. But deep down, I knew the truth always surfaces. You just have to let it. She destroyed herself. I didn't need to lift a finger, all I did was move the glass. I sleep well now. Not because I won, but because I didn't lose myself trying to fight her. Elise and I are stronger. Our home is quieter. And every time I glance at the empty chair across the table, I remember, sometimes survival is restraint. Justice doesn't always need noise, it just needs to be seen.